This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
OPEC Plus has reached a preliminary deal to gradually ease production cuts from May, two OPEC Plus sources said on Thursday. The group was still debating exact figures, sources said. Two sources had said earlier that OPEC Plus was considering increasing output by 350,000 barrels per day in May, 350,000 barrels of oil per day in June and 400,000 barrels of oil per day in July.
Emissions regulated by Europe's carbon market fell by 14.4% in 2020, the biggest percentage decline yet, as pandemic restrictions stifled economic activity and grounded flights, official data examined by carbon analysts at Refinitiv showed. Around 45% of the European Union's output of greenhouse gases is regulated by the Emissions Trading System, ETS, the bloc's flagship instrument to tackle global warming by charging for the right to emit carbon dioxide. The Refinitiv analysts' interpretation of European Commission data found emissions covered by the ETS totaled 1.365 billion tons of CO2 equivalent, down 14.4% on the previous year.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
A federal appeals court on Thursday rejected New York City's effort to hold 5 major oil companies liable to help pay the costs of addressing harm caused by global warming. Ruling in favor of BP plc, Chevron Corp., ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil Corp. And Royal Dutch Shell plc, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan said the regulation of greenhouse gas emissions should be addressed under federal law and international treaties. It rejected the city's efforts to sue under state nuisance law for damages caused by the company's admittedly legal production and sale of fossil fuels, and said the city's federal common law claims were displaced by the Federal Clean Air Act.
Indian state retailers' gasoline and gasol sales in March rose by 27.4% and 28.6%, respectively, from the low base of last year when a nationwide lockdown to stem the spread of the coronavirus hit consumption, preliminary industry data showed. State companies, Indian Oil Corp., Hindustan Petroleum Corp. And Bharat Petroleum, own about 90% of India's retail fuel outlets. The three companies sold 2.47 million tons of gasoline last month, the data compiled by 3 state retailers showed. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. India's gold imports in March surged 471% from a year earlier to a record 160 tons, a government source told Reuters on Thursday, as a reduction in import taxes and a correction in prices from record highs drew retail buyers and jewelers. Higher imports by the world's second biggest bullion consumer could support benchmark gold prices, which have corrected nearly 17% from an all-time high of $2,072 in August 2020. The surge in imports could increase India's trade deficit and pressure the rupee. India imported a record 321 tons in the March quarter, up from 124 tons a year ago, the source said.
China will ensure its crude steel output falls in 2021 and launch a nationwide investigation into the implementation of steel capacity cuts since 2016, industry regulators said on Thursday, as the country aims to meet goals to curb emissions. China, the world's top steel producer, started a campaign to eliminate outdated and excess capacity in the ferrous sector since 2016. Last year, the imports of steel products rose 64% and billets surged by nearly 500%, but the country's steel output also hit record levels as industrial activity roared back to life following pandemic shutdowns.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
French soft wheat shipments outside the European Union in March reached their highest monthly volume this season, boosted by a jump in exports to Morocco, Refinitiv data showed. Soft wheat exports to destinations outside the EU 27 and Britain totaled 937,700 tons in March, the 9th month of the 2020-21 season, an initial estimate based on Refinitiv loading data showed. That surpassed a previous season's high of around 876,700 tons in November. Morocco was the leading destination, accounting for 348,400 tons, nearly 3 times the volume shipped there in February.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.